Hey ho! Hello everyone. Let's listen to music just for a second. Oh yeah! Oh yeah, that infected mushroom. This is great. Trance music. And I've always wondered what personality types like what kinds of music. I'm curious, what kind of music do you like to listen to? Let me know. Now, this is sort of a prequel video to a video I kind of have planned. I'm planning on eventually doing an entire series on cognitive functions explained in my unique way. I mean, I've seen other channels do it, but I believe I have a unique perspective that I can offer, which is simple, intuitive explanations that are easily understood. All right, so what I'm going to talk about is introverted intuition and all of the functions just on a very basic, simple level. Just the most straightforward explanation I can give. Just doesn't matter if you're a beginner, doesn't matter if you're intermediate, doesn't matter if you're advanced. I'm just going to hit you. So let's go. Introverted intuition. So imagine you're sitting in a car with a friend, and your friends are like, "Oh, where should we go to eat?" I, as an INTP, have a type of introverted intuition where I'm sort of skeptical of it. I tend to avoid using it, at least in a very lighthearted manner. I tend to use it in a very heavy manner, if that makes sense. They call it NI critic, John Beebe. So you have the one friend in the car that's like, "Yeah, let's go here," and it just kind of pops up. "I want to go here. Oh, I want to do that." That's sort of like an insight. That's an introverted intuition insight popping up in their head. So introverted intuition is just sort of insights bubbling up in your head. It's like, "Ooh, I have an idea," and usually these insights come from the environment. So it's like, "Oh, that's cool. I like that. I want to go there." That's what that is. It's insights. Okay. Same thing. Extroverted sensing is directly tied to introverted intuition, and the basic nature of extroverted sensing is you're taking information in directly through your senses. So with my eyes, I can see the steering wheel on this car. I can see the textures on this light, if you can see that. I can see that I have a beard on the camera phone, and I notice these things in the environment. So this is in contrast to extroverted intuition, because you may be thinking, well, that seems kind of similar to what introverted sensing might be. But here's the distinction. So extroverted intuition, in contrast, is interacting with the world in terms of what might happen or what has happened before. So it's sort of like over time my personality type acclimates to these things, and I see the steering wheel, but I just see it as something to interact with. I don't see it as a steering wheel, if that makes sense. So, for example, extroverted intuition is like, well, let's talk about introverted sensing first. Introverted sensing is just your experience of the world. So, I remember this from the past. Another way to describe it as introverted sensing is constantly comparing what's happening right now in front of you to the past. So, an introverted sensor, when I see the steering wheel as an introverted sensor, I'm comparing it to my previous understanding of the steering wheel. Whereas an extroverted sensor will take it more at face value for what it literally is right now. Okay? And the same way, extroverted intuition is a direct extension of introverted sensing. So extroverted intuition is taking the fact that I keep seeing the same steering wheel over and projecting, well, what if this changed? What happens if the steering wheel turns red? What if the steering wheel morphs into another shape? What if I use the steering wheel in an unexpected way? That would be extroverted intuition, like imagining possible projections of my repeated past experiences. All right, those are the gathering functions, meaning that they're just how you pull information from your environment. You may pull information from your environment in terms of an insight in your head, directly, like I see the steering wheel, or in terms of what the steering wheel may have been before, what it will be in the future. That's just gathering. That's not thinking. Now, the judging functions, or maybe there's a better way to describe those, they're more like decision-making functions. They take that information and decide what it means or how to value it. Like, is it important? Should I pay attention to it? Should I use it to decide if I want to do this or that? Or if you get the point. So, introverted thinking. That is essentially decision-making process where you, within yourself, compare ideas to each other and look for associative links between those ideas. So I'm going to give the example of an INTP versus an ISTP completing a Sudoku puzzle to help you separate out SI versus SE. So the INTP will use SI to solve the puzzle. So if I do a Sudoku puzzle, you got several squares, And the goal is to get the numbers in the squares to have only one of each number in each square. So 1 through 9, it's a set of numbers on a puzzle. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. So it's a set of numbers, and you're trying to get all those numbers to match up and figure out how to complete the puzzle so you follow the rules of the puzzle. Well, as an INTP, I repeatedly play Sudoku, and the first time I played it, I'm like, oh, what's happening? I don't see any patterns because I've never played it before. Next few times I play it, I start picking up little details like, oh, if there's a 3 in this square and there's a 3 in this square, then there will be a square open here, and this will usually have a number here that has a correlation with these 3s. So that's seeing the patterns from repeated experience playing Sudoku. Whereas the ISTP, in comparison, has insights that pop up as they see the numbers like, oh, I know, I have an idea, let's try this. Oh, I see what's going on here, let me try this. So it's a different way of approaching it, but they're both using TI to do it. And what that means is like, oh, I can see how this could work. This makes sense. That's TI. This makes sense. Okay? This is true. I know this will work because I've done it before. I've seen it before. I understand it. In comparison to TE, and I'll be talking more about mental models in the future, but the difference between TI and TE, one way to look at it is TI is sort of like a master model of the world. You're looking for the ultimate solution to everything. At least for INTPs. For ISTPs, it's a more on-the-fly type of TI. But it's TI nonetheless. TE, in contrast, is just like what works right now. I can make it work near, how can I think of it right now? Like if you're playing Sudoku, for example, the TE user may just throw some numbers in there and see what sticks, see what works. Like, oh, that didn't work. Let me try another number. Oh, I know it might work. Let's try this. Let's try this. And it's less about like, oh, this has worked before and this makes sense to me because it's worked before. Or, oh, I can see how this could work right now. It's more like, oh, let's just kind of blast stuff at it and see what sticks. Another way to look at TE is practicality. So it's facilitating ideas in the world. It's what actually works out in the world when I try to take what I understand and apply it. So, and now TI is on an axis with FE. Most of you may know this, but I'm just repeating it for those of you who don't. FE, in contrast, I've heard it explained different ways. Some people explain it as ethics. All it really is the ability to see the emotions in your environment and understand how to put forth an emotional output that's objective or understandable by others in the same way as TE, because they're fundamentally similar, just like NE and SE are similar. I explained that the steering wheel with SE is similar to NE, but the fundamental way in which they're looking at the steering wheel is different. It's the same thing with the judging functions, TE and FE. TE is really good at facilitating outcomes, whereas FE is better at looking for outcomes that people can all agree upon. So it's a little bit different. A lot of the FE users I know tend to be very polite. They want to get along. If you're really nice to them, they'll be really nice to you. Whereas the TE users are just like, well, this is social interaction. Let's make it work. Let's get it done. Got business to do. And even if you're like nice to them or not, they can be nice to you, but it's not for the same reason as an FE user would be nice to you. FE user just like tends to respond, social reactivity, responsiveness, reciprocity. Whereas the TE users tend to be a bit more, well, this is what works. This is what we're going to do. They're really good at communicating. They're really good at facilitating ideas, but it's definitely not the same as FE. In the same way, TI is looking for understanding of things. What is the truth? Does this make sense? So let's say an FE user tries to complete a Sudoku puzzle. Typically, they'll be like, oh, this is fun. They're maybe oftentimes sharing it with someone else. Hey, do you like this Sudoku puzzle? I like this Sudoku puzzle. Oh, this is fun. I just like to do it in my spare time. But typically, they'll do it in a similar way as to other TI users because FE and TI are closely linked with each other according to the theory. And then finally, the last function I want to talk about is FI. FI is similar to TI in that it's looking for truth, but it's a different kind of truth. It's more like it feels good and it doesn't feel good. Now, I should disclaim that I'm an INTP and FI is one of my least understood functions, so I can only give you my intellectual understanding of it and my personal experiences with it. I know that when I talk to an FI user and I'm like, hey, what do you feel about this? They immediately can tell me, hey, this feels good. I like the way this song that you wrote hits me. I like the way that this flows, this piece of art, So they're really good at telling me what works and makes sense and what feels right to them on a very gut level. Whereas I'm personally not as good, so it's important to ask advice from FI users as a TI user myself, because they can round out my understanding and thinking. And one more thing I want to add about FI is that the steering wheel, for example, SE versus NE, the SE sees the steering wheel as it is, NE sees the steering wheel how it might be or how it has been. In the same way, FI sees the steering wheel for its value, and oh, this is a cool steering wheel. I think this is a valuable steering wheel. Whereas TI is like, does this steering wheel have a meaning to it? Can I understand the steering wheel? So there are distinctions in how that works. And if I wanted to say how the FI type would use a Sudoku puzzle, they would probably do something. Well, first of all, FI doesn't like Sudoku puzzles. FI users that I've talked to are like, oh, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound any fun. Whereas I actually like to do it for fun. So there you go. And finally, but if they do play Sudoku, they'll do it in a practical way like TE users because FI is intrinsically linked with TE. So yeah, there's your general explanation of the cognitive functions just on a quick whim. I'm planning on doing a more formal video of this soon. It takes me a while to get the production values to the level that I want, but I was like, well, should I at least kind of give you a taste of what it is that I'm planning on doing? So if you like these prequel videos, let me know, and also what I asked at the beginning, I'm curious about that as well. What kind of music do you like, and what is your personality type? Yeah. Peace out, guys. And I'm going to get back on the road.